Okay, we're live. I'll be sharing a little bit and we'll begin with the podcast. Okay. I have one like. That's good. If anyone is there, just wait for a little bit. I'm just sharing and we'll begin the analysis, the breakdowns and all of that. Just give me a little bit. Okay. Let me get back to. Hey, heel hookers. This one is rough, man. The maker in particular. Like, after watching tape for the undercard, I thought that's pretty good, but man, the main card is rough, man. One of the worst that we've seen like in a while. In a while. That was not very good, man. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Okay, I think I just begin. My main card is bad. It's bad. We'll get into that, man. Strickland, man. Strickland just like likes to complain about shit, and then he just does everything the UFC wants him to. Like, but that was funny, man. Like, oh, I'm never going to fight Australia again, man. And here he is, man. And here he is, about to maybe probably lose the rematch, even though I thought he won the first one. But yeah, man, it is what it is, man. Anyway, let's get into action. I'll begin recording the intro in a second. So glad to have you around, guys. What's up, guys? I'm Feño from the Fight Site, and this is the fall preview for UFC 312. This is going on this Saturday on the Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. We had 13 MMA bouts. This card is headlined by a rematch between Dricus Plessis and Strickland. And we also have a co-main event for the strawweight title between Weili and Tatiana Suarez, which might be the most compelling fight of the card. I'll be honest, the main card here is rough. It's very rough. In contention for one of the worst we've seen in recent memory. I would have to check some other cards, but in the last 10 years, this one is one of the roughest, I would say. But the prelims are surprisingly decent, so we'll see when we get into that. Remember that there's a live version of this breakdown that I do on YouTube. You can watch that when I announce it, and you can join the chat and comment. But if you don't like to see it live, I also offer a recorded version on every streaming platform, be Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Stitcher, whatever. But yeah, why don't we get into our first fight? The first fight is actually pretty good. Update here. We have a fight between Hyung Park and Tumendemberel. So let's begin with Hyung Park. He's well-rounded, athletic, and big. Has shown quick improvement, especially in his striking. He feints a lot with the lead step, lead shoulder, and the hips, but he can be kinda predictable during his entries. He's active with the jab and leg kicks. He looks to open up with short combinations with big power. He has some slickness on the outside with good lateral movement, decent footwork, and high behind his lead shoulder and cross guard well. He can be caught on entry during his own combos, but he is mechanically clean and has a good eye for openings. The shot selection is a strong suit for him, and his variety allows him to capitalize when he's pushing opponents back. He's a decent counter threat with a quick trigger. His defense can be a little bit bare bones, especially in the pocket. He relies on controlling the initiative to disengage at the right time, and he doesn't move his head much. Park is strong in the clinch from collar ties with elbows and knees, and he uses the change-up between the two very well. He's also decent from over-unders and the body lock, working trips, throws, and mat returns. He's a serviceable wrestler and grappler. Park has good ground and pound and is overall solid on the mat, but he shines the most when he gets to the back with good control and ability to finish with strikes and the rear naked choke. A sketchy takedown defense and lack of head movement seem to be the most apparent flaws from the promising prospect. And against we have Tumendemberel. He's wild, long, and athletic. Tumendemberel throws everything big, little to no setups and janky mechanics, but he's powerful, fast, and smarter than it seems at first glance. A stiff jab, a loopy right hand, and a wide left hook are complemented by sneaky long uppercuts down the middle and powerful kicks. Surprisingly good at hiding behind his shoulders and covering up during exchanges, he has good awareness and instincts inside the pocket. He moves around with decent footwork, but his positioning can become messy during exchanges. There's not a lot of head movement integrated into his striking, so that's something to look out for. He's a former judoka and samboist. Tumendemberel is an insistent transition fighter who will look for clinches or look for takedowns constantly. He's physically strong, he can rush attempts and end up on bad positions, but on the flip side, he's good at finding strikes during breaks. A variety of trips, throws, and foot sweeps are complemented by a solid single leg that he can shoot from the outside. Takedown defense can be exposed when he opens up with strikes, and a lot of his defensive grappling relies on his ability to get to a third position. He's an opportunistic submission grappler who is particularly dangerous during transitions and after hurting opponents. His gas tank is solid, especially for his energy management because he throws everything big and wild. He's very tough. Lack of nuance is his biggest issue. This is a very cool fight between flyweight prospects. Park is the one with more finesse, while Tumendemberel shines in messy, chaotic scraps. Both guys are big and athletic for the weight class. Tumendemberel is the lankier fighter, but Park's superior jab might put the long distance on his favor. The Mongolian might have better defensive instincts inside the pocket, but the Korean is cleaner mechanically and more defensively minded. Grappling might be a route to victory for the Mongolian, but he needs to be careful to not be reversed trying to cheat takedowns inside the clinch. While Tumendemberel is the judoka here, Park, as most Korean fighters, is also strong in the clinch. I think Tumendemberel is better at finding strikes during clinch breaks, but Park is better at using knees and elbows inside the clinch itself. I feel like Tumendemberel is going to eventually give Park the reads he needs to control the fight with short combinations, and I expect the Korean to be well-rounded enough to deal with the transition-based attacks of the Mongolian. My pick is Park by decision. So let's get back into the chat. And yeah, let me update this with the pick. Hey Arman, how are you, man? Nick Wilson says, Strickland being confused why there are so many Mexicans in Nevada. Man, he's not the smartest, man. Strickland is not the smartest, man. Alan Felling says, really think Park goes to a win on the feet. Thinks he finds a knockout. There's a chance, but Tumendemberel has looked very durable so far. So maybe if he finds something big to the body, there might be some value there. But I'm thinking that Park wins a decision here. I think this fight is likely to go a decision either way. But it's a very good scrap, man. For an opener, that's very good. Let me open my Red Bull here. Hey, we have Shriram here. The only guy... Even though I hate Strickland, I'm probably rooting for him over Duplessis. I just can't stand watching Duplessis, man. I feel like Park is dangerous, but he's not much of a killer. That is not someone that is always looking to pull the killer shots. He's someone that is more concerned with winning. And Tumendemberel is very... Tumendemberel is very tough, man. He's very tough. He's very durable. He took some shots in his last few fights, especially the one against Top Noi. Duplessis is just disgusting, man. Oh no, man. That's... Even though I like Strickland better, yeah, Duplessis better win this one because I don't want to see this fight again. Like, are you kidding me, man? I'm not. My body's not made to watch Duplessis versus Strickland 3 times. Like, get the hell out of here. This card is actually, I mean the prelims, I will defend the prelims of this card. Like, it is not like stacked with names, but I feel like the prelims of this card have a lot of good action fights. The main card is another story, we'll get into that. Oh man, I already almost finished my Red Bull, man. So yeah, let's get into the next one. Next, we have a lightweight, excuse me. We have a lightweight bout between Quillan Salkilld and Anshul Jubli. Let's begin with Salkilld. A long kickboxer, Salkilld maintains a high output on the outside with hard kicks to all 3 levels. He likes to start his combinations behind stutter steps, and he has a penchant for kicking off his punches and punishing resets with kicks. His jab is inconsistent, but he makes up for it with an active lead leg that he uses to attack with quick inside leg kicks and body kicks with little tail. The left hook to the body is another valuable weapon for him. At range, Salkilld depends on controlling the initiative for defense, using spacing and counters to keep opponents away, but he does have the ability to hide behind his lead shoulder and slip shots to come back with counters. And he's also excellent at catching kicks and countering with punches or kicks of his own. Salkilld likes to mix things up constantly and is a solid transitional fighter. He's good at putting takedowns attempts at the end of his combinations. And he's big and strong for the weight class. He's a scrappy wrestler who pummels well and likes to swim to the back or work trips from over-unders and the body lock. Salkilld has been he has been put flat on his back and he has been controlled, but he's always looking to create space with butterflies and pushing off the hips. He's another fighter that shines from the back take with excellent transitions between it and the mount, and also good at stretching opponents out. He's a capable finisher with the rear naked choke and ground and pound. He's very tough and well conditioned. He has shown some problems with his defense and cagecraft when pushed back and has been controlled on the ground in the past. Against him we have the Indian Anshul Jubli, a long and well-rounded kickboxer. Jubli mostly fights behind a long jab, a 1-2 and a long straight to the body, waiting to pull back from counters and come back with his left hook. He's at his best pressuring with steady volume or at neutral space. A long front kick to the body and a stepping knee help him with spacing, and he has shown the ability to punch off his kicks and knees. He's also good at punishing level changes and ducks of his opponents with knees off the collar ties. He has some good defensive ideas when controlling the initiative, hiding behind his lead shoulder, changing levels and pulling back, but he has trouble getting crowded at range or forced to retreat. He can hold his chin up high and rely on a static high guard. A decent wrestler, Jubli can shoot when he forces opponents try to close the distance, or he can pressure and change levels against the fence. He has a preference for the single leg to initiate exchanges, but he can climb up to the clinch and finish strips if denied to the legs. His side takedown defense has been exposed when he's caught in transitions or opening up for strikes, but he's good at keeping scrambles rolling and works hard to get back up. Solid from top position, Jubli is controlling but also damaging with ground and pound, especially if he gets to the mount. Other than defensive issues when put on the back foot, his cardio has been a concerning aspect of his game in fights that he's not completely dominating. This is an interesting fight between long kickboxers who aren't afraid of mixing their takedowns. At range, this should be close and the advantage should go to whoever is able to control the initiative and range with their feints and strikes. Jubli's jab should be a valuable weapon, but he cannot concede kicking range against the Australian here. Whoever, if anyone is able to complete takedowns, would also enjoy a valuable advantage here. I feel like Salkild's superior power and poise when fights get rough, coupled with his apparent conditioning advantage, should give him a decent edge here, so my pick is Salkilld. He gets the knockout on the second round. Let me get back to the stream. Prelims still coming at a low level. Yeah, this is not like super high level. Like most of the fights are like newcomers and guys with like 1 or 2 fights, but at least the matchmaking is pretty decent. So I'm okay with that. Aleksandre says boa noite. Boa noite to you. Happy to have you around. But for example, I'm pretty excited about this fight. To be honest, I think this is a pretty cool fight between Jubli and Salkilld. What comment did you get deleted? Because none of the moderators are here, so if you had a comment deleted, it was probably YouTube. Like YouTube just moderates by itself. It sometimes deletes comments, and there's nothing I can do about that. So I'm sorry about it. Anyway, let's get to the next one. Oh, what's the next one? Anyway. Oh, we have Jouset versus Micalef. We move up 1 division to welterweight for our next bout. We have a fight between Kevin Jouset and Jonathan Micalef. So let's begin with Jouset. Touchdown striker fighting out of city kickboxing. Rangy but a bit on the stiff and slow side. He's mostly about the change-up between the jab and the left hook and the rear kick, particularly to the legs. To accomplish this, he is constantly feigning with the lead shoulder and the rear hip like many of his CKB teammates. He does a good job of maintaining jabbing range to maintain good pace and volume. He also hand fights to set up punches. A variety of kicks and the ability to switch stances give him options and allow him to not become too predictable. He does throw everything at basically the same tempo though, and his defense mostly consists of keeping the right hand up and slipping or pulling back. This means he relies on controlling exchanges to keep himself safe. His tendency to keep his left hand low can get him hit with right hands, but also allow him to check incoming foes with the left hook. He can become more defensively minded, using better head movement and acting parrying, but this comes at the cost of his counters. A former judoka, Jouset is a stout presence in the clinch and can work a variety of trips and throws, with a preference for the wizard kick. He has looked solid from top position and overall as a grappler so far, but not a lot of it has been seen yet. Other than his limited defense, Jouset can struggle when he's not dictating the pace of a fight and can be hit during resets. Against him we have Jonathan Micalef, a very scrappy southpaw grappler. He's janky and kind of stiff on the feet. He has some good ideas about parrying his attacks, and his footwork is better than you might think initially looking at him. Micalef throws hard and pushes a hard pace. While he's mostly looking to wrestle, he's not afraid of throwing down, and he has decent timing and shot selection. Defense can be sketchy though, as his static high guard can expose him to setups and takedowns. He's mostly better off changing gears to his wrestling for safety. Big for the weight class, Micalef is not exactly a technical wrestler, but he's sticky and grindy and will be able to drag opponents down if they're not able to disengage. He's not shy about shooting to the legs. He mostly completes takedowns from the clinch, muscling trips from over-under, sometimes ending up on bottom. He can transition to clinch entries well of his punches when he grabs opponents against the fence though, so that's something to look out for. Micalef is a relentless scrambler. He's very hard to pin down, not allowing his hips ever to be flat, and using the wizard and the cage to get back up. He's also good at reversals. He will attack from his guard with triangle and armbars, which will also look from the top, and he's also an avid Kimura user. Micalef shines in ugly fights, putting a pace on opponents and taking over with his transitions. His cardio and size are very good assets, but his reckless style has cost him in the past. I can very easily see Micalef turning this one ugly enough that it looks like something resembling the Brian Battle fight, where he takes over and melts Jouset. That being said, Jouset did a good job of defending Battle wrestling attacks and was controlling the fight before the pace got out of hand. Battle had to take a lot of hits to earn that win, and while that is exactly what Micalef actually does, I feel like the striking differential here is a bit too much. This depends on a lot of unknowns, but I gotta side with Jouset with his superior striking and solid clinch base to fend off the takedown, so I'm picking Jouset to get the takedown on the second round. Let's get back to the shot. I joke the key to defending Jubli is to bark at him while he's basically beating you, scaring him into paralysis, then knock him out. Man, that fight was crazy, man, but I don't know, man. I'm hoping that was like a learning experience for Jubli. I mean, I'm not picking him to win here, but I think he has potential. I think he's solid. Apparently, Jubli was scared to catch rabies. Man, Micalef, I don't like him, man. I gotta be honest here. He's like typical jiu-jitsu guy that tries to take the fight to the ground whatever way possible, and he's not a very good wrestler. He's also like huge and jacked, so that's a very like annoying kind of fighter to me. I don't know about you guys, but never been a fan of these guys that are not like great wrestlers and they're like just trying to like create scrambles the whole time. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of like Turcios in a way, but Turcios is like wilder and his grappling is more creative. So, and I don't like Turcios a lot, but I like him better than Micalef, man. Gotta be honest with that. Let's get into the next one, I guess. Okay, this one bangs, man. We are back at lightweight for a bout between Cody Steele and Rongzhu. Let's begin with Cody Steele. And stocky and athletic submission grappling import, Steele fights a lot more in the mold of a wrestler boxer. He's a rugged pressure fighter that reminds me of an orthodox Greek story. Steele likes to walk people down and put together compact and dense combinations on his opponents. His fondness for body and leg work complements his style well, and he's the owner of nasty calf kicks and punishing hooks to the body. He throws everything with power, and his accuracy is still a work in progress, but his shot selection is mostly on point. His defense is surprisingly solid for a grappler with his level of experience, but he needs it because his style means he's constantly engaging. Steele's solid footwork and stonewall guard are complemented by active blocking during prolonged exchanges. He has shown vulnerabilities during resets, and he might be susceptible to longer combinations because of his reactions. A solid transition fighter, Steele likes to change level after his combos and drive opponents to defense to work his takedowns. Strong from the clinch, he can also change levels to complete doubles against the fence. Not terribly controlling in MMA so far, Steele will quickly look for wrist and ankle rights against the fence and is content to let opponent work their way up to land strikes in transition. As a grappler, Steele was heavy from top position and the rear naked choke was his go-to submission. Seems like he has been focusing on striking and transitions lately in his MMA career. Durable and conditioned, Steele is a very promising prospect who so far is just lacking depth and experience. And against him we have Rongzhu, an aggressive kickboxer with stout takedown defense. The young Rongzhu is experienced beyond his age. He's not even 25 and has been in 31 pro MMA fights. Not only that, but he already had a UFC run and earned his way back into the promotion, showing improvements, winning the road to UFC title. Rongzhu likes to stay on his opponent's face and initiate combos with his jab. His pressure coupled with his leg kicks and front kicks to the body are also useful to draw counter opportunities. He likes to intercept entries with the jab, hide behind his lead shoulder to absorb a right hand and come back with a counter combination. And his wide stance that allows him to throw power with his rear side has exposed him to leg kicks in the past though. He can lose his stance when throwing the right hand. Rongzhu is yet another fighter who defends better when controlling exchanges, pulling back and hiding behind his shoulder when anticipating. He's vulnerable during his soul combinations as he tends to keep his hands low and his chin up high. He's solid in the clinch. Rongzhu is diligent about disarming grips and turning into his opponents. He's always looking for elbows during the breaks. And he's quick to fit the single leg and angle off the wizard to limb leg out when he is presented with takedown attempts in open space. His ground and pound is very solid, especially when he postures up, landing nasty straight shots to the body and head. Rongzhu is dangerous and very game, but his options on the feet can be limited, despite his good eye for openings, and his defense during exchanges is concerning. This is an interesting fight. They seem to be well matched on the feet, with Steele having better process, but the more experienced Rongzhu being more organic. Steele might be the more powerful puncher and kicker, but Rongzhu being more accurate and trickier might make him the immediately more dangerous of the two. Steele is more consistent with his attrition work though, and his body and leg work might give him an advantage late in the fight. Cody Steele might want to use his wrestling more, but the improvements Rongzhu has made on his takedown defense should not be ignored. That said, it's hard to imagine Rongzhu is at the level of Steele if the fight does hit the mat in any static position. I feel like the attrition, defensive focus, and grappling edges for Steele are a bit too much despite the experience disadvantage, so I'm picking Steele to win by decision. Yeah, man, Jubli has like a good game put together. What's weird, man, like, I usually don't buy when people say like, oh, he got into his head, but in that fight it really looked like Breeze really got into his head, man. Like he kind of mind fucked him with the barking and the taunting and all of that. Not Breeze, Breeden. But man, Breeden was feeling himself. And it's crazy when fighters just find the confidence how better they can look. Like he was still throwing that very ugly right hand that Bruna has, but he was like flowing, man. He was like taking angles, evading shots, checking kicks. He was finding the target. He was looking very good in that finishing sequence. That was crazy to watch, man. He hurt so bad at the beginning of the second round too, man. That looked like a shot that would have ended him. Is anyone excited about Cody Steele, man? I feel like he's a huge prospect, man. Very excited about him. Might have some limitations if he doesn't progress like past this point in the striking, but he will give us so many good action fights if he keeps fighting like he does right now, man. He's very cool. And Rongzhu is fine too, man. He's cool to watch. He's like very aggressive. He's super young. I don't know what's the deal with these Chinese fighters and their longevity, man, because like Song Yadong should be shot by now. Like he has like 1 million fights. I know he's super young, but he has so many fights in his record. He has been fighting professionally since he was 16, and I'm probably Rongzhu is the same, right? So that's crazy. These Chinese fighters start fighting so young, and they do not like. They are not shot to pieces like super young. Like they have surprising. They had surprising longevity, man. Let me check real quick. When did Rongzhu start fighting? He started fighting on 2016, so that was 9 years ago. Yeah, he was 15. He was fucking 15 when he started fighting professionally. That's crazy, man. That's crazy stuff. Anyway, let's move up to the next one. Oh, we have Topuria. Older Topuria. We go down to bantamweight, and we have the debut of Aleksandre Topuria against Colby Thicknesse. So let's begin with Topuria. The older brother of the featherweight champion seems to have a style more focused on the wrestling than Ilya. There's not a lot of footage from Topuria. He has only 6 professional fights, and half of those were from 10 years ago. He's an athletic and confident fighter, and since coming back to MMA, he has shown some of the boxing leaks his brother has acquired, mostly fighting behind a lead hand and a shoulder roll to set up the big right hand and follow up left hook. How far his boxing skill go beyond that is unknown, as he hasn't been tested there since coming back. He's a former Greco wrestler. Topuria is strong in the clinch, but also capable of shooting at the legs from open space. Like his brother, he initially had a more submission-oriented style that seems to have moved into being more of a riding and ground and pound mat wrestler. There's a lot of unknowns when it comes to Topuria. The only time he was tested, he got tired and finished on the 3rd round after winning the first 2. But as I said, that was almost 10 years ago, and it looks like he has improved since. He looks athletic and clearly has a good training situation. Against him we have Colby Thicknesse, a lanky southpaw grappler. Thicknesse usually fights behind his powerful rear kick that he predominantly throws to the body. With that established, he can punch off his kicks and use it to set up his takedowns. He's responsible about actively blocking when he's expecting counters using high elbows and a cross guard. But defense seems limited outside of that, especially when pushed back. He's scrappy in the clinch, will use his frame to look for knees from collar ties and elbows and knees during breaks. While he shoots to the legs often, unless he gets a good entry thanks to the threat of his kicks, he mostly ends up in clinch situations. Wrestling from the clinch, he's sticky. And he will try to drag his opponents down by any means possible, and he likes to swim to the back and will look to take the back while standing up. He's a good level black belt on the ground. Taking the back is his specialty, with good control, damaging ground and pound, and a good rear naked choke finishing mechanics. Thicknesse is tough and conditioned, but he's not exactly a physical force. Seems like Topuria is getting a favorable matchup here, facing a fellow grappler. Thicknesse could get some success kicking from the outside, and there's a chance that he has a cardio advantage if this fight goes long. His grappling pedigree means he won't be immediately walked over in the case of conceding a takedown. That being said, despite the limited footage of Topuria, he's the better wrestler and boxer and looks to be the more physical fighter in this matchup. I feel like Topuria outboxes and out-wrestles Thicknesse to earn a TKO in the second round. Okay, let me edit a little thing real quick. Okay. So Topuria's brother, right? It's very weird. He has been fighting like very little. Like this seems like clearly the UFC doing them a favor, but he might have the. He might be UFC caliber, man. Bantamweight is a brutal division to be a guy that has not been fighting like. For someone that hasn't been fighting like super like seriously the last few years, I feel like if you're like a good fighter at welterweight, you can maybe like get back into MMA and pull out on the UFC. But bantamweight and featherweight, man, those are like shark tanks, man. Even lightweight is like obviously a very good division, but the lower tier fighters are like, they are like step down. Like featherweight and bantamweight, I feel like they don't have like bad fighters, man. And he's like, thankfully for him, right? He's fighting a fellow guy that's debuting, and I don't really feel like Colby Thicknesse is like exactly UFC level, so I'm guessing Topuria will have like a successful debut here, man. Oh. Okay. Next fight is contested at flyweight, and it's a fight between Wang Cong and Bruna Brasil. Quick disclaimer here, I was asked for technical advice for Bruna Brasil by the Fighting Nerds team for this one, so I'll try to not include the insider information, the few that I have when it comes to this matchup, and I try to make this pick like considering what I've seen from the previous fight and not what I have learned during this fight camp, right? So let's begin with Wang Cong. Wang Cong, a former Sanda and kickboxing standout, Cong has adapted her toolset well for MMA. She has some versatility to her movement with decent footwork in both directions, but she's at her best pressuring. She likes to stalk her opposition behind feints, and she throws her rangefinders, her jabs, sidekick, and inside leg kick with power. The right hand is her most damaging punch, and she can find it from range as a straight or from up close as a short hook. She can build combinations based on reactions, usually entering off shoulder steps and knee lifts. Countering, she likes to intercept before putting combinations together and angling out. While her footwork is good, she can tend to loop her shots during prolonged exchanges, and she doesn't move her head much. She's good at ducking under strikes and grabbing clinches to smother offense before swiftly pivoting and getting back into range. She's also a good kick catcher like most Sanda fighters, but this can be a dangerous game to play as we saw in her last fight. Her takedown defense has been very solid so far, using good use of whizzers and underhooks coupled with her footwork to deny takedowns. Inside the clinch, she's aggressive with knees to the body and will aggressively look for hooks to the body and head in case of having a free arm. She has shown takedowns of her own in the form of kick catches and also a quick reactive knee tap. From top, she has damaging ground and pound and has shown some grappling chops, including an impressive mounted guillotine victory in her road to UFC fight. Cong is tough and well-conditioned. Defense during her own attacks and her willingness to engage when she's in trouble are her most apparent issues at the time. Against her, we have Bruna Brasil, a lanky and quick karate kickboxer. She moved to Fighting Nerds not long ago and has seen noticeable improvements. Brasil likes to operate at open space or moving on the outside, establishing a long distance with her powerful kicks. A versatile kicker with both legs, she's also able to switch stances thanks to her ambidextrous legs. When opponents try to close the distance, she will try to intercept with quick hands or nasty knees to the body. Athletic and powerful, she carries decent power in her hands, but she's vulnerable during prolonged exchanges, hooking too wide and keeping her chin up high. Cagecraft has improved lately, being more careful with her retreats than in the past, but combinations against the fence are still concerning. Decently strong in the clinch, she frames and looks for knees and elbows, and her footwork on the inside has also seen improvements. A constant threat with the wizard kick, this has allowed her to defend takedown attempts on the inside and get takedowns of her own. She is a decent grappler, has had trouble getting put flat on her back, but she works hard to scoot to the cage for wall walking. She's an opportunistic grappler and a good scrambler, but she can get in trouble rushing submission attempts. Her ground and pound is solid and punishing, but she can have trouble maintaining control while letting her hands go from top. Bruna is durable and well conditioned, but has had trouble with confidence and adaptability in the past. It remains to be seen how she fares at 125. This is an interesting striking bout at 125 with Brasil moving up. Cong has been consistently good at dealing with fellow kickers, but it was her comfort catching kicks that led her to getting hurt in her last fight. You would expect Cong to move forwards and Brasil to move on the outside here, and both fighters will have the chance to do what they're like depending on their approach or of the other. Cong probably wants to get Brasil behind the black line and letting go with her punches, and while she's the bigger puncher of the two, both carry power and can be defensively susceptible in those situations. Brasil will have chances to intercept the entries of Cong, but she needs to be careful with the right hand as Cong will throw it even after getting hit. Grappling should be fairly even, and clinching situations will depend on who gets the terms they want, but Brasil needs to be mindful of any potential size and strength differential. I'll play an unbiased source here and make my pick disregarding what I know from the Bruna side. So I'll pick Cong by decision, which was my pick before getting involved here. So we'll just leave it at that. He really hates the fighting nerds, right? Hey, it's my good friend Badger in the chat. This was feeling incomplete without you here, man. I'm so happy that Badger is here. Did I? Yeah. So I'm putting like my cop-out pick here. To avoid like... I'm being a coward, right? I'm being a coward picking like Cong. Because this is a pick pretending that I don't know what Bruna is supposed to do in the fight. But I feel like it's very hard to make a pick considering that and not knowing what they're doing in the other side. So I feel like this was the right move, I guess. Anyway, let's get to the next one. Oh, we have Nolan. We're back at lightweight for our next fight. We have a bout between Nolan and Viacheslav Borshchev. Let's begin with Nolan. A freakishly long southpaw striker, Nolan likes to take advantage of his length, establishing a long distance behind straight punches, roundhouse kicks to all three levels, and a punishing snap kick to the body. Aggressive and creative, Nolan pairs his attacks well at range, looking to set up his big shots, and is fairly competent countering opponents close in the distance. He mostly likes to pull counters and intercepting knees for this purpose. His tendency to extend his combinations can expose his defense as he doesn't move his head much and mostly relies on hiding behind his lead shoulder inside the pocket. Defense when pushed back is concerning as well. Unless he's drawing a counter to which he's playing to angle, he can tend to retreat on straight lines and rely on static frames. He's decent in the clinch and knows how to use his long frame well to find knees and elbows, and his takedown defense is aided by his frame there. Somewhat untested as a grappler at a high level, he has shown a good baseline level of grappling, especially during scrambling situations, and uses his frame to bail out of exchanges. He's particularly good at pushing off the hips with his long legs to deny top position. Nolan has had trouble against people who can approach his height and has been vulnerable on the inside, but he has good cardio and he's a very potent offensive threat. Against him we have Slavaklaus Viacheslav Borshchev. A rangy kickboxer with a big left hook. Slava likes to move around on the outside, disrupting and measuring his opponents with the inside leg kick, waiting for entries or counter opportunities. Not much of a consistent jabber at long range, but he makes a good use of the jab during exchanges, intercepting entries or tracking fleeing foes. He's at his best when he's able to slip the initial shot with his high guard and fire back with his dangerous hooks, especially the left hook that he can land to the body and the head to tremendous effect. A switch stance kicker, his boxing surprisingly doesn't change much when he's from southpaw, but he opens up the open side body kick against orthodox fighters. He's a hard kicker. He likes to punish the circling of his opponents with roundhouse kicks to all 3 levels. He's solid defensively, mixing his responsible high guard with constant head movement to both sides and pulls as well. He can tend to be too reactive with his defense at times though, and he can be set up by feints, combinations, or caught making the wrong read. Solid inside the clinch, he's a punishing dirty boxer from collar ties with dangerous uppercuts, and his footwork on the inside is pretty good. Wrestling has consistently been an issue, but years training with Team Alpha Male have turned him into a solid first layer scrambler. Borshchev is well conditioned and very tough, but it seems like his reflexes and durability are not on their prime anymore. This is a fun striking matchup between long strikers. Borshchev is the one that would be greatly benefited on getting on the inside as the vastly superior pocket boxer. Nolan has been hurt on the inside before and by counters in the past, and that plays straight into Slavaclav's game. That being said, the Russian has been looking frail as of late, and Nolan is a powerful and creative threat that might find the openings that he needs, especially early. Nolan has also showed a good gas tank in his last fight against Reyes, so it's not a fact that a long fight favors Borshchev here. Nolan is probably still improving, that's something to consider here, while Borshchev is most likely a finished product. Despite all of the things that favor the Australian though, I don't think Slava is short enough to disregard the basic matchup here. I think Borshchev finds the shot he needs on the inside and gets a second round knockout. Oh man, I think I have an allergy or something. Anyway, let's get back into shot. I feel like this is a decent fight. Like, should be exciting. I'm not a fan of Nolan, but he's so offensively minded that he's always like in bangers because he just gets hit a lot, and if he's not getting hit, like he's hitting the opposition. So Tom Nolan is like guaranteed action, and Borshchev kind of the same, especially now that he's like more frail. But I really want Borshchev to pull it off here because I don't know, he has taken so much damage, especially in the Chase Hooper and the Sadikov fights, where he got hurt like a million times. And that fight against John Top, he looks super fragile, but he still like pulled away at the end. So that was cool. Anyway, what's the next fight? Oh, this one is the good one. This one is the good one. We go to featherweight for a featured prelim. We have a fight between Jack Jenkins and Gabriel Mosquitinho Santos. Let's begin with Jack Jenkins. A stocky combination striker, Jenkins has made a name for himself with his brutal leg kicks, but his left hook to both the body and head is also an ever-present threat. He usually likes to walk people down behind feints and big single strikes, usually playing the changeup of the jab and the leg kick. If he gets opponents reacting, especially covering up, he will open up with good combinations, often emphasizing the left hook to the body or a punctuating leg kick. He can switch to southpaw for a variety of reasons, and he's also fundamentally solid from there. While Jenkins can retreat often when presented with offense, he has solid defense, mixing his high guard with parries and is a counter threat. Strong inside the clinch, Jenkins usually goes for collar ties, liking big body knees that complement his attrition game. His footwork inside the clinch is also solid, and he looks to regain the center of the cage during tie-ups. Takedown defense is usually sturdy, grabbing underhooks and denying trips in the clinch, but he has been surprised with leg attacks when marching opposition down. A good reactive takedown of his own is aided by his timing, athleticism, and frame. Jenkins is solid from top position, he's the owner of steady and hard ground and pound, and he's good at maintaining mount, but can be reversed when rushing his passes. Athletic and conditioned, and also tough, Jenkins can struggle when his kicking game is denied, when put on the back foot or put flat on his back. Against him we have Gabriel Santos, a dynamic and well-rounded kickboxer. A switch stance hitter, Santos likes to maintain the initiative with forward movement and constant feigning, especially with the lead hand and level changes. He fills the gap with straight punches and powerful kicks, but he mostly likes to draw counter opportunities. A counter threat with both hands, Santos has a tight left hook and he likes striking retreats with a long stepping 1-2. If opponents sit on the outside, he will get creative pairing his attacks using a variety of kicks and knees to find openings. Good footwork allows him to navigate the cage, get close to opponents, and move on the outside and evade when it's needed. While he has that aforementioned good footwork, he moves his head well and can hide behind his shoulders. Santos is not a very deep defensive fighter. He relies on his aggression and counter threats to keep exchanges to deny exchanges during the early layers where he can defend well. But he can be susceptible to long combinations or getting caught when getting carried away with his offense. Santos is also a willing transition fighter. He will mix it up with clinches and takedown attempts often. Solid knees and elbows inside the clinch and a quick reactive shot give him more options to control the flow of the fight. Santos is aggressive from top. He will look to posture up and land damaging ground and pound, and his positioning and base are solid. Opponents usually need to get up during the big strike attempts. Takedown defense and defensive grappling have been solid so far. Santos is athletic, durable, and conditioned. His problem is getting too focused on his offense and trying too many things at the same time. We have a bout between well-rounded strikers here. While Jenkins is focused on a simple toolset, Santos is more likely to try a bit of everything. With that said, we still have similarities between the two, as both are big kickers with dangerous left hooks. While Santos' variety might give him the edge when it comes to adjustments, Jenkins' consistent style will allow him to add constant attrition if the fight goes long. Santos is the taller and longer fighter here, but if Jenkins establishes his leg kicks and jabs, that might not matter. Jenkins will have to deal with the variety of kicks from long range, especially the front kicks, and will have to remain consistent and not fall into a stance switch game with Santos. I don't expect grappling to be a big focus on the fight, but Santos would be benefited the most if he finds a reactive takedown and uses his damaging ground and pound. This is probably the best fight of the night with no reservations, and it's very closely matched. I think I'm siding with the Australian Jenkins to take home a decision with his body and leg work. So Jenkins by decision is the pick. I'm very excited about this one, man. This one should be on the, this one should be on the main card for sure, man. Like, well, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, Jack Jenkins versus Mosquitinho is better than the main event. Like, I'm not even being like a nerd here. Like, I'm just saying, a hipster saying that this fight's better. No, man. This fight's fucking rules, man. This fight's great. It's between like very, very skilled guys. This guy could very perfectly be ranked at featherweight. This should not be controversial. Like, any ranked featherweight is better than the guys at middleweight right now. Like, no offense. Like, there are a couple of cool guys up there at middleweight, but featherweight is just such a way better division, man. And now it's downhill. It's downhill from here on, man. Main card is rough as shit, man. Main card is bad. Jack Jenkins and Jake Matthews. And they're like on consecutive fights too, because we have a Jake Matthews fight next. So let's get into the main card, because fights are getting like least interesting until we get to the top two, I guess. And the main one, I don't even have notes for the main one. I'll admit that. Anyway, let's. The main card opener is a welterweight bout between Jake Matthews and Francisco Prado. Let's begin with Matthews. A blade stance striker, Matthews likes bouncing on the outside, looking to quickly close the distance or sit back waiting for counter opportunities. Jabs, overhands, and leaping lead hooks from both stances are his most common leads, but he can also put short combinations together. He's usually looking to set up a big punch or a head kick with his combinations. Kicks mostly goes to the legs and to the head, and those add variety to his long range game. While countering, he defaults heavily to the left hook, and while he can be dangerous with it, he can fall into predictability. Head movement is inconsistent, he can be proactive with it, usually after his own combos, but he can tend to trust his counter left hook and high guard too much inside the pocket. Same time counters and being pushed back to defense exploit his defensive tendencies. A solid grappler overall, Matthews has good takedown defense, scrambling ability, and quick reactive takedowns against incoming opposition. He's strong from top position, has good control and passes, and his endgame from top position is usually the back, being the owner of a solid rear naked choke. While he's a good scrambler, he has struggled when put flat on his back, and his reliance on turtling and wrestling up has exposed him to front headlock chokes. A tough and well-conditioned, Matthews can lack adaptability in close fights. And against him we have Prado, a kickboxer moving up from 155. The Argentinian is only 22 years old. Despite his 14 pro fights, he's still a work in progress. In spite of losing his last fight against Salkilld, he showed a lot of improvements. Prado has always been an aggressive pressure fighter, but it seems like he's getting better at putting together combinations while moving forwards. A power puncher with both hands, he marches forward, moving his head to both sides, and attacking with hard leg kicks while keeping his high guard up. A sneaky stepping high kick allowed him to add variety and dissuade head movement from his foes. He does a good job of staying on top of his opponent with his footwork, but can have trouble cutting them off with his own strikes. Prado is defensively aware, looking to put his high guard and move his head, but he's constantly there for the taking, walking into range, and he doesn't have much depth to his defense. Not a lot has been seen from Prado in the grappling realm, so it will be interesting to see that. He was spending some time at the goat shed, and there's like good grappling instruction and partners there, so maybe he has some shops. Prado is still largely untested against high-level opposition, especially in grappling and wrestling situations. So Prado moves up to 170 against fellow former lightweight Matthews. Striking-wise, this seems like a well-matched fight. Matthews has the advantage at long range, but Prado can make him uncomfortable with the pressure. Inside the pocket, both guys are dangerous and have limitations, so it depends on who gets the exchanges under their own terms. As always, it is hard to predict how Prado will look moving up, as he was a big but not enormous lightweight. Matthews, on the other hand, has been up at 170 for a long time now, and has filled his frame into a well-sized welterweight. So I'm expecting him to have a size advantage here. Matthews will also have the grappling card. While Prado might be a good grappler, that remains to be seen, and Matthews might be the most potent transition fighter he has faced so far. So I think Matthews takes over this fight with his long-range tools and his reactive takedowns. I'm picking Matthews by decision. Okay, throw darts through BS. Oh man, DDP, man. I think like the safe thing at this moment is just like saying, oh, DDP is going to win, man, because that's what always happens, right? Dr. Jones, hey, happy to have you, man. You just joined like just after the Gabriel Santos fight, man. Yeah, Gabriel Santos versus Jack Jenkins is the best fight here. It's like by far, man. I'm like way more excited about Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos than I am for the main event. But yeah, I mean, looking into the Weili fight, I have kind of stakes on two fights here. I already talked about the Bruna Brasil fight. And I have a little bit of stakes for the Weili fight. And talking about Weili, we have Ghost here. I'm logged off of most social media, but I had to drop by to say, hey Ghost, I appreciate it so much, man. Yeah, Matthews and Prado is like a good action fight, but I don't get why this is getting the main card billing over the Matthews. I mean the Jenkins versus Mosquitinho, because that's also a guaranteed action fight. But there's more baffling stuff like next, so why don't we get into that, right? The next fight is a light heavyweight one, and is a bout between Jimmy Crute and Rodolfo Bellato. Let's begin with Crute. Tough and well-rounded, Crute comes back after a year and a half away since losing his rematch to Alonso Meningfield. He's still only 28 years old. Crute is mostly known for his well-roundedness and grittiness. A meat and potato striker, he likes to walk people down behind his high guard, looking to land his jab and leg kicks before opening up with right hands and kicks upstairs. His left hook might be his best punch, and he can put it at the end of combinations or to meet opponents in the form of a counter. While there's not a lot of nuance to his striking, his footwork on the front foot is solid and his mechanics are good enough to punish mistakes. Defense when pushed back is bare bones, as he can lack variety on his head movement and his static high guard can expose him. Similarly, he's vulnerable, putting longer combinations together, failing to move his head with his own punches. Crute has made most of his name in the division as a transition fighter. He's very good at mixing takedowns in. Crute has a solid double leg that he can finish in open space or use to drive opponents to the fence if he fails to control an opponent after the initial shot. He's a solid chain wrestler who can grind attempt after attempt against the cage. A solid ground and pound and submission attempts during transition mark the danger of being taken down by Crute. From his back, he's active with butterfly hooks and will look to create space to sweep, wrestle up, or walk against the cage. Well conditioned and very durable, Crute issues has been the lack of depth to his striking, especially his bare bones defense. Rodolfo Bellato, a well-rounded pressure fighter, he keeps some people's faces with solid lateral movement, attacking with leg kicks and his jab while pushing foes back. He eventually opens up with combinations and he carries power in both hands and can put his hands together well. Uppercuts give him variety, using long uppercuts to leap from distance and short ones inside the pocket. He remains defensively minded, but his options are limited. From range, he backs up with his guard up, and while he will look to actively block or counter, he retreats in straight lines. Inside the pocket, he hangs behind his shoulders and remains aware, but his movement can be inconsistent, especially when getting carried away with his offense. Like his opponent, Bellato is also a transition fighter who likes to push people against the fence to look for takedowns. Bellato, I feel, is at his best beating people up against the fence, mixing uppercuts, elbows, and knees in between his takedown attempts and smothering potential counters. When it comes to takedowns, he favors the single leg when attacking the legs, and he tries a variety of trips from the clinch, like in foot sweeps, to disrupt exchanges. He can rush takedown attempts from the clinch and has been reversed going for bad attempts though. His takedown defense in the opens is solid, and when he has found himself off his back, he has shown to be a capable grappler able to get back up. Bellato is not the most powerful or nuanced fighter, but he tends to break people, especially against the fence. This is somewhat of a mirror match between well-rounded transition-based light heavyweights. Crute is probably the better mechanical boxer of the two, but Bellato might be more organic when it comes to his shot selection. Both guys are fond of leg kicks, so it will be interesting to see who establishes their kicking range more effectively. Also, both guys likes to mix in the wrestling, but Bellato usually needs his space to take effect to be successful against decent opposition. Crute is probably the superior pure wrestler of the two, especially in open space. Grappling also have them pretty well matched. It feels like Bellato has a better process to break people down, while Crute just mixes things up looking to exploit mistakes. While Bellato's process is superior, I feel this is somewhat of a bad matchup for him, as Crute is just as well-rounded, will be able to compete everywhere. He's also well conditioned and probably the harder puncher of the two. So I think Jimmy Crute will put the upset here. I'm picking him to win a decision. And this is not a bad fight, but like main card of a pay-per-view in 2025, is this like really? Is this really what we're doing? Like, I feel like I said on the analysis, I feel like these are like two solid light heavyweights. Like, nothing wrong with this fight. I feel like this is a very interesting matchup, especially because both guys are like weirdly well-rounded for 205. But like, we have better fights down. I guess like Jimmy Crute is like big in Australia. But is he like still big? Because he's like in a 3 losses and 1 draw streak right now. And I guess the UFC is like high on Bellator. And this is going to be a fun fight, I guess. Like, there's not super likely that they like grind up a lot in boring wrestling exchanges. But still, like, it's a bit like puzzling, right? But I guess like Jimmy Crute is like somewhat big in Australia. And that goes, and also that also goes for our next fight. Nick Wilson says, feel like I'm going crazy seeing Suarez get down to even money or even favorite of some books. We literally haven't seen her past the 3rd round. Yeah, we'll get into that. But a lot of people are like super confident on Suarez, man. We'll see, man. I don't think it's impossible for her to win, but okay. Let's get into the next one, I guess. The big boys. I know you all like the big boys, man. And we move up one division more to heavyweight for our next fight between Thalisson Teixeira and Justin Tafa. So Thalisson Teixeira, a towering heavyweight with staggering speed. He's surprisingly light on his feet for a man of his stature and employs in and out movement well to complement his length. The 6'7" kickboxer fight behind long jabs and leg kicks, looking to pull back from any counters. Uppercuts as counters to incoming opponents are his weapon of choice inside the pocket. While Teixeira tries to hide behind his lead shoulders, he fights out of a tall stance and punches down a lot, which exposes his shin. Other than that, all of the classics of tall men's defense are their static frames, reliance on pulling back and stepping back, and lack of head movement against the fence. Teixeira is very much improved as a grappler against any kind of high-level opposition. His reach, power, and speed make him an ever-present danger, but he has very clear vulnerabilities on the inside. Against him we have Justin Tafa, a southpaw kickboxer. On the stocky side for the division, he can fight decently long thanks to the open matchup he usually finds himself in. Tafa is active with his lead hand, and he's the owner of powerful leg kicks. He stands mostly flat-footed, but he's deceptively agile and he starts sharp out of the gate in fights. Tafa packs tremendous power on his left hand and left kick, and he has a good eye for finding the head kick during resets, and he can counter well with his right hook. He usually makes good reads, but can become predictable during longer fights where he doesn't find his big hits, as he usually sticks to the same weapons over and over again. When it comes to defense, Tafa likes to parry and use high elbows to block and deny exchanges early, and his footwork is solid, maintaining his stance and angling well. Grappling remains, to this point, barely tested in his MMA career, losing to a heavy wrestling approach by Carl Williams in his last appearance. He has shown at least a baseline skill set to defend takedowns and scramble, and this is aided by his athleticism and strength. Cardio seems to be decent, and he's very tough and powerful. He's at his most vulnerable trying to close the distance. This is an interesting striking matchup at heavyweight. Tafa will be in danger when closing the distance, but if he does close the distance, the tables turn. This is an open stance matchup, so it will be interesting to see if Teixeira can keep his jab and leg kick game or how he will adapt. Grappling should be a non-issue, but Teixeira is the one with a submission to his name and his record. I feel like Teixeira showed enough vulnerabilities on the inside against an undersized opponent in his last fight that I have to go with Tafa here. Tafa will have the open stance advantage, And while not every heavyweight is exactly like 6'7", Tafa knows how to navigate the waters against a taller fighter. So I'm picking Tafa to get the knockout on the first round. This is an upset. Again, I mean, I don't have anything against this fight, like the fight itself. But why are we putting this on the main card of a pay-per-view? Why is this before the title fight, right? And I say this as someone that doesn't hate Justin Tafa like so many people do. Like, I feel like Justin Tafa is fine. He's a perfectly fine UFC level heavyweight. But he should not be the A side on the main card of a pay-per-view. I understand that he's from Australia. They're trying to put the Australian guys. And this is not like even like an even super favorite matchup. Even though I feel like Tafa is going to win here, right? But I feel like, is Teixeira the favorite? I think he's the favorite. And most people are picking him. On Topology, we have like a 71% of people picking Teixeira here. And again, man, this is not like main card pay-per-view quality fight. This is a perfectly matched fight. Oh, man. Oh, no. I did change. This is a perfectly fine match fight, but this is like, why? Why do we have like unranked heavyweights on a main card in 2025? Like, we have more fighters. Like, this is, I get they have 2 title fights and they're not like even like, I guess the women's fight is pretty good, but I don't know, man. It's so frustrating seeing matchmaking like this. Like, the matchmaking is like on a vacuum. Every fight is like very decently matched here, I feel. But I feel like you needed to put more important fights on this pay-per-view. Like, we have unranked welterweights. If Matthews wins, Matthews has like very low chances of becoming ranked. Then we have unranked like heavyweights. Like, the winner of Cruz and Teixeira might accomplish something on the division, but right now this is not like a super important fight. This is like Bellato's second fight on the UFC, and he's coming from Contender Series. Cruz is coming off a long layoff, and now we have like unranked heavyweights that are not going anywhere. Like, trust me, man. Trust me. Teixeira might get to be ranked someday, but he's never been a champion, and I'm not trying to be rude here. But it's like, why? Why are we doing this? Like, this is, especially considering how expensive the pay-per-views are getting. Like, I don't understand what the UFC is doing with this pay-per-view. Like, are Strickland and Plessis that big of stars? Because they're not putting even on a good fight, right? Like, we saw some discourse about like, oh, Plessis versus Strickland was a great fight. That was because some incels have never seen a fight before, right? So what's going on here now? I don't get it, man. I don't really get what the UFC is doing in this one, man. This is such a bad main card. I usually try to defend, and I feel like the matchups on itself are not bad. This is not awful, but man, there's gotta be like something better, right? I don't know, man. It's like some weird stuff. Anyway, let's move to the first of 2 title fights. And with that, we get to our co-main event. We have a title fight for the strawweight title. Weili defends her title against Tatiana Suarez. Short disclaimer, I wasn't like directly consulted for this fight, but I did a little bit of scouting work for the Weili camp here. So I do have a little bit of like external skin of the game in the game for this one. So yeah, let's get into Weili versus Suarez. This one is obviously very dependent on the game plan, but I guess we are all expecting Weili to try and keep this one on the feet, despite her wrestling heavy approach as of late. We saw Weili dominate Carla Esparza in her own realm on the wrestling, But Suarez is a bigger and more imposing physical figure and an even better wrestler than Carla Esparza, something that was apparent when Suarez fought and won in a very dominant fashion against an even younger Carla Esparza than the one that Weili fought. Suarez has progressed as a southpaw striker and uses her rear kick well to set up her shots. Against Andrade, Suarez used her rear kick to take Andrade's hands away and open up the path for takedowns, and showed some good awareness about inside and outside foot positioning. Especially trying to attack the single leg when Andrade was trying to get it to the inside for the jab, and he's using her jab every time that he finds herself in inside foot positioning. Andrade, I feel like, did expose some of the limitations when she's dealing with somewhat resembling physical parity. But Suarez also showed another side of her because she showed her resourcefulness using the snapdown in that fight. Weili, obviously, like, clearly the superior striker, but she can be vulnerable herself, leaping into range, and she needs to be careful striking with her rear sides to not offer her hips for takedown attempts. The question of feeding the single leg is also an interesting one. It might look tempting to feed the single leg and limp leg out, but Suarez is versatile and has good ankle control and a variety of finishes. So she can lift the leg, she can climb the leg to run the pipe, she can go for the high crush and leave from there. So she has a lot of options. So I'm not sure if like playing the limp leg game is the right idea here. In case of being taken down, it is important to attack ribs and work a get up early against Suarez. I feel like Suarez has too many options during prolonged exchanges, and she uses her length very well there. I feel like one of the biggest questions for this one is the cardio for Tatiana. Tatiana is very big for the weight class. She's coming off a long layoff and has never had a round fight. In fact, the few times that she has gone to a decision, she has been in complete control of the fight, with the exception of her Nina Nunes fight, in which she gassed pretty bad on that third round, and I think she lost that fight. So that's something to keep a big eye on. That was like a long time ago, but Suarez has not been like super active since. That was like 3 fights ago. Tatiana also struggled a little bit dealing with someone strong in Andrade and someone bigger than her, like physically, in Montana de la Rosa in her flyweight bout. But she also showed to be dangerous and resourceful with the snapdown and the guillotine, and finishing both fights with guillotines. So Suarez is not like exclusively like a strength and size bully. Like, she's very skilled as a wrestler as well. But that's something of note, that she was like clearly less comfortable fighting someone that is like athletic or big in the case of Montana. And Weili, obviously, Weili is like not bigger than Montana de la Rosa. I feel like Weili is going to be a bit smaller than Suarez, or maybe a little bit more than a bit. But Weili is like tremendously physically strong, very athletic. So that's going to be interesting, right? There's a lot of question marks surrounding this fight. Suarez will likely have a lot of opportunities to implement her game here, because for as powerful and athletic that Weili is, she hasn't been much of an immediate finishing threat on the feet, especially from long range. That being said, Weili is the better known commodity. She's the more experienced MMA fighter. They're almost the same age. And Weili, as I said, like just as good of an athlete, or maybe better than Tatiana Suarez, and she's not coming off a bad injury, while Tatiana Suarez has been dealing with a lot of injuries. So you never know where her physicality will start like falling off. I think with all the unknowns, I think I trust Weili to keep it on the feet more often than not here, and use her superior striking and her clinch skill and strength to edge most of the rounds. I don't think the analysis needs to go like super deep. Like, you could talk about like entries and the way of Weili defending takedowns, but I feel like Weili, she's so adaptable, and she has been turning into such a like game plan dependent fighter that I guess you have to trust her to follow the right instructions here. And the scouting, and I'm not saying because the work that I did, I feel like the scouting of her team overall has been very solid. Shout out to Ghost, who has been like the main scouter for him, for her for a while now. So he has been looking at the habits, and I feel like if you go to the details, Suarez is not invincible. Like, and we saw that in the Nina fight, and we saw that at moments during the Andrade fight, there was like a lot of openings, especially for a fighter that is like more adaptable, and that has a team that will get the right training partners, because Weili has a very good training situation, I feel, and that's a big difference between her and Jessica Andrade, even though like they're like maybe comparable athletes. And Weili seems to be like a more like coachable fighter. So all that being said, I gotta go with Weili, and I think Weili wins a decision. That's my final pick here. So yeah, man, this one is cool, man. This one is like the most intriguing fight. Like, I feel like the better fight is like Jenkins versus Santos, but I feel like the most compelling, most important fight by far in this pay per view is obviously Weili versus Suarez. Obviously the UFC has like a semi tradition of putting the bigger weight class higher most of the time, but and they have like broken that. But I feel like the UFC is dropping the ball and not turning like Weili into a bigger star outside of China. I mean, she has like more potential to be a crossover star than DDP and Strickland, man. I feel like the UFC really overrates the ability of like boring white guys to be superstars. I don't know, man. I feel like that they just go crazy over like white guys that speak English. Like sometimes they're not like, and Strickland talks a lot, but he's doesn't have that much of a like crossover appeal, man. Maybe with some like parts of the community, but even though what you might see on the internet, like, yeah, like most like hardcore MMA fights, like they kind of suck, right? They are like mostly like misogynistic assholes, bigots, but if you go by popularity on like social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, you see that the bigger stars are guys that one are flashy inside the cage, like Strickland and DDP do not look good inside the cage. And second, they have like a charming personality that doesn't need to speak English. Like, you see fighters connect a lot without language. That's something that Adesanya had that neither like Strickland or Duplessis have. But I feel like that's something that Weili can have if you market her the right way. And it's a better fight. It's a much. I'm not saying that Weili is a better fighter than Strickland and Duplessis necessarily, but this is a more interesting matchup. Like the first fight between Duplessis and Strickland was not great, and we'll get into that right now, I guess. And with that, we get to our main event. We have a rematch between uh, defending champion Dricus Duplessis against the man from whom he took the belt off, Sean Strickland. Since their last fight, Duplessis defended his title against Israel Adesanya, and Strickland won a fight against Paulo Costa. So okay, let's break down a little bit what happened on the first fight. Dynamics on the first fight were like pretty clear. Strickland is as always fighting from his tall stance, looking to jab and tip. But Duplessis, unlike Adesanya, he got on his face. He pushed him back. Pushing Strickland back makes him a lot less effective. Strickland still had like the defensive edge by a big margin. He was able to defend a lot of the stuff from Duplessis, but he was not able to like especially use the tip so much, like moving backwards, and that was like a very valuable weapon early on the fight. Um, Strickland connected a lot with the jab. It was like one of the most significant strikes. Maybe the most important strike of the fight was Strickland jab. Was doing a lot of damage, doing a lot of good connections. It was splitting the high guard of Duplessis. Duplessis, on the other hand, was not having a lot of success with the jab. He was not jabbing a lot because mostly Duplessis always like just jabs in part of like a marching 1-2, and Strickland was seeing that coming. But Strickland was having a field day, like defending the loopy shots of Duplessis, especially like the overhand, and because like Duplessis, and this is something that they both share, has very bad mechanics on the overhand, right? As Miguel Class said in his analysis, shout out to Miguel. Duplessis flares his elbow, giving a big tail. But most importantly, like his punch has a terrible arc, and he ends up like hitting guys with the wrist with very little power, and that's something that he shares with Strickland. The weird stuff here in this fight is that Strickland's right hand got worse as the fight moved on. Even when he opened up and was more aggressive during especially the fifth round, Strickland was throwing some of the ugliest right hands that I've ever seen in a title fight in MMA. While Duplessis started finding like a more straight right hand as the fight went on, which is interesting because like will they carry these adjustments early into the fight? To be honest, I felt like Strickland won their first encounter. I feel like he did a lot more damage. Duplessis has some smart adjustments, especially going for takedowns, punishing the tall stance from Strickland. Like Strickland is not in position to react very quickly to takedowns. He's in a good position to defend kicks though. And that was something that I was always very vocal about Strickland, that he was not very good at defending kicks despite his tall stance. And that's something that he corrected for the Sanja fight. He showed up with very good ability to check kicks in that one. But that was moving forwards. And moving backwards, he was started like being more vulnerable to kicks. And Duplessis just kept the volume. Despite Strickland going to the body early with the tips, Duplessis kept like very high volume. He was being aggressive, kept Strickland moving back, mixed up the takedowns, and that gave the optics that he needed to win the fight. So what can change into this rematch? Strickland, I feel like he needs to stand his ground more. I know the takedown threat is there, but if he's proactive and tries to move forwards, it's not like he will walk into takedowns from Duplessis. Like Duplessis is very, very strong. He has good drive on the takedowns. But if Strickland is proactive, like he can just kill the shots with the underhooks and angling off. And Strickland, like in a vacuum, like Strickland is very criticized because he's not a good pressure fighter. But I don't think that Strickland is very concerned with pressuring guys. He just wants to create exchanges when he moves forward. And he's like more concerned on being like in front of you than having you against the fence, because he's not like a very dangerous combination puncher. He's more like a guy that wants to like follow you around and pester you with long strikes. That's the Strickland thing. So it works for him, but his footwork, I feel like it's underrated, and I've talked about this a few times. When it comes to positioning relative to the opponent and not the cage, Strickland has pretty decent footwork. He maintains a solid stance. He takes angles well after his combinations, especially when he's looking like to do like that weird shoulder rolling that he does. He always like takes an angle. So Strickland is kind of underrated with the footwork, and I feel like he can do that. Like he should be able to like be more insistent on keeping the front foot. And Duplessis can be a counter threat and a surprising one, because Duplessis is willing to step out of position to land his shots. And that's something that surprised a lot of fighters. But Strickland, like, he has like good eyes, and even though his reactions are like big and everyone says like, oh, this exposes him, but against like a poor mechanic puncher in Duplessis, like Strickland is like very safe most of the time, despite the power that Duplessis possesses. So I feel like Strickland needs, if there's one big adjustment here, is that Strickland needs to walk forwards more and not accept like being on the back foot against Duplessis. And he just needs to risk it. Like he just needs to try to defend a few takedowns on the open stance and on the open space and just push Duplessis back. For Duplessis, more straight punches. Like it is very hard to catch Strickland with flaily arm punches. Another one would be like if he is like coming into this fight with a straighter right hand. Like if that's an adjustment that he has. Is a follow-up left hook. The problem is that Duplessis, as we said, like awful mechanics in most of his punches. But if he was able to throw like a little bit of a tight left hook, a left hook is the killer for that kind of like shell that Strickland tries to fight. Duplessis also like needs to repeat what he did well on the first time, even though I don't think he won the fight if you scored the fight correctly. He still did find success eventually, and that's something that it's underrated about Duplessis, is that he's able to adapt even though he doesn't have many tools. He's like good at trying different stuff and sticking to what's working, so he needs to be more active with kicks from the beginning. He needs to pressure again, and for that, like, he needs to try a takedown early to see what happens. If the takedown puts fear into Strickland, just go for it. And if you need to like do marching combinations, like Strickland is not like a huge counter threat, so Strickland defends well, can take an angle, but he won't like super punish you if you go hard at him. So marching combinations are a good idea, especially if you can go like straight down the middle and maybe add a left hook at the end. That would be like very clear chances for Duplessis to choose something. The left kick is a good idea against Strickland. It's like one of the hardest strikes to defend for his stance. So go to the body, go to the head often with the left kick. That would be a good idea for Duplessis. And in case of getting takedowns, just land strikes in transition. Make those big moments count instead of like going for like trying to control Strickland, because Strickland is like pretty decent at minimizing damage and wall walking. But when he's wall walking, you can hit him, so Duplessis should go that route, I guess. It was not a great fight the first time around. I think it's still kind of interesting to see the adjustments they make, because like these guys, like they always fight the same, but at the same time, Strickland, you know, despite all the like meathead talking, he's a guy that overthinks the fighting, right? That's why he's not more aggressive. Because he is a huge overthinker, but he's a huge overthinker that doesn't like a lot of adjustments. He just like overthinks the same stuff over and over again. But at the same time, like Strickland has shown the ability to show up with a good game plan into a fight. We saw that in his tremendous performance against Israel Adesanya to win the title. And Duplessis is a guy that has like limited amount of very ugly tools, but he has like decent decision making overall. Duplessis will do sometimes something very stupid, but when it comes to like big picture adjustments, I think he's pretty solid. So I think it's likely that Duplessis will apply what worked on the first fight from the beginning, especially because he feels like he won that fight, right? And he won that fight officially, so I think it is on Strickland to show up with a few adjustments to take over here, and then not allow Duplessis to add adjustments on top of the adjustments. So I think it's kind of compelling. I'm just not super excited because like rematches are like tiring, and I want to see like new stuff, man. I wish this was like Chimaev versus Duplessis or something, or get the shot to Imavov, man. But I don't know, it's whatever. Even though I think like Strickland won the first time around, and I feel like he could win again, I'm going to go with Duplessis by decision again. That's going to be my pick. I feel like he's going. I hate to like talk about this during analysis, but I feel like Duplessis once again is going to have the optics. He's going to have the optics of the more powerful, more damaging fighter, even if he's not. And he's more adaptable. Like Strickland might be the better technical fighter of the two, but I feel like Duplessis like actually changes stuff up. And what Strickland did to change stuff up on the first fight was getting more aggressive and throw his right hand like uglier and uglier as the fight went on. And we saw some of the like shittiest overhand rainbows of all time. So my guess is that Strickland doesn't show up with a lot of like new tools here. And Duplessis is like going to, we will most likely will see a more aggressive repeat of the first fight. Hopefully it is that and no like a slower repeat of the first fight, because that would actually suck. And if both guys are more aggressive, we might have a chance to see a better fight, a more decent fight, because like if they are more aggressive, we might see more mistakes and more capitalizations on those mistakes. But yeah, those are my expectations. I'm picking Duplessis by decision. That's my final pick here. And that's it, man. That's the pay-per-view. Again, the main card is rough. It's very rough. Like the fuck are we doing here? I mean, main event is okay, I guess. It's okay. It's like I'm not super excited because the first fight wasn't very good, but I guess the second one will be better. I'm guessing. Co-main, it's cool. It's cool. It's very compelling. It's one of the like most compelling fights that you can make in women's MMA at the moment. So I'm not going to complain about it. Wish it was on a better card though. Then you have Thalisson Teixeira versus Justin Tafa against on a vacuum. Okay matchup, but a terrible fight to put on a main card pay-per-view. Jimmy Crute versus Rodolfo Bellato is better, but it's still like, this is not pay-per-view quality. No disrespect, I have a lot of respect for Jimmy Crute and Rodolfo Bellato, but I feel like you should be having like more meaningful fights on a pay-per-view main card. The same goes for Jake Matthews versus Francisco Prado. It's like a cool fight. It's probably going to be action-filled. It's going to deliver, but this doesn't shake things up at the division. Then we go into the prelims, and we have a lot of like cool little fights. Jack Jenkins versus Gabriel Santos is obviously the fight that I've been hyping the most. It's the best fight, like quality-wise, I feel. And it's one of the, other than the two title fights, this is the most meaningful fight on the card, because the winner here is likely to be a ranked fighter that does something in the division. And it has like the hometown guy in Jack Jenkins. So it's like this should be on the main card, but this is the best fight in the card. Then we have Nolan versus Borshchev. Guaranteed action, both guys get hit a lot. Both guys are like very interesting offensive fighters. No complaints there, like this is not important, but this is a good action fight. Wang versus Bruna Brasil is actually like one of the most meaningful fights in the card, especially because Wang like was the victim of a huge upset. So is she going to bounce back here, or is Bruna going to become a player at 125 because she's moving up to 125 after a very impressive performance at 115? A victory that is like meaningful against Molly McCann. We have the debut of Topuria. This is like not super important. But it's okay because like at least he's carrying the Topuria name. So there's a lot of like hype behind this, right? Cody Steele versus Rongzhu is tremendous, man. This is a great fight. Like Cody Steele might have a future in the division. I'm not so sure, but Rongzhu is like should be it's going to be an action fighter in the division for a while if they allowed him. So this is a great test for Cody Steele. I'm excited about this fight. Kevin Jouset versus Jonathan Micalef. It's alright. It's okay. We have a striking versus grappler fight. We'll see if Micalef can like put the base on Jouset and make him break, or if Jouset will use his superior striking here. It's fine. Salkilld versus Jubli, fun striking fight. And the opener, Hyung Park versus Tumendemberel, is the one that is flying under the radar. I'm very excited about this fight, and this is a meaningful fight. These are like valuable prospects in the flyweight division. These guys are like not super. They're both guys are just 9 fights into their careers. Park is 29. Tumendemberel is 26. These guys have a future in the division, both, and the winner might get a good step up in competition and something meaningful in the division. So, yeah, I mean, prelim is just way better than the main card here. I gotta say that, man. And that's it for the pay per view. Really, like the main card is bad, man. I know it has 2 title fights, but it's rough. But that's it, man. I think I'll catch you guys on the Fight Companion during Saturday. I look forward to that. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'll stay on the chat for a little bit for those that are live right now. But for the recorded version, this is it. Thank you so much, guys. Remember that if you want to support the Fight Side and me, you can head over to Patreon. For only a few dollars, you get access to a huge amount of exclusive content and access to our Discord server. That is very cool. So if you want to help me a little bit, you can throw me a few dollars over there. It's always appreciated. But if you can't do that, you can always like and subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You can give me a good review on your streaming platform of choice. Thank you so much, guys. I'm Fenio and I'm signing out. Okay. Back at the chat, we have Dan Albert. What you're telling me, you can't market face planting with perfect asthmatic regulations. Man, Duplessis is such a mess, man. How do you market Duplessis if you have to show clips, man? Nick Wilson says Insult think Strickland winning a belt proof he's good. Chats realize that it proves middleweight is sterile. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I feel like Strickland is a pretty decent fighter. But I feel like in a good division, he should not be a champion material fighter. I feel like Strickland is good, but he's like step below even the Michael Bisping that won the title, right? I feel like Michael Bisping that won the title is a better fighter than Sean Strickland. And that was out of prime Bisping too, under weird circumstances. Ronan, hey, I'm going to stay for a little bit. If anyone wants to talk, just because you're here, I appreciate that you're on time to tune in for a little bit, even if it's for just a while. You can always hear, obviously, the recorded version. It's going to be on YouTube as soon as this ends, and also on podcast platforms. But yeah, man, this pay-per-view is not good, man. It's like, yeah, main event I think is probably going to suck. Like, I was just talking about that. I have a little bit of faith that it's going to be like a more aggressive version of the first fight. And if they're both like more aggressive, it might end to like bigger moments, because I felt like it was so dull. The first time around is that nothing happens. It was an okay watch live, but as you're saying, like as a rewatch, it's pretty bad. It doesn't have like a lot of momentum shifts, and the adjustments are like very bare bones, so it's not a very good fight to watch, man. It was okay watching live because it had the intrigue of like who's going to win, and then I thought like Strickland won, and then he didn't. Yeah, Dricus might just bonk him this time around. I didn't mention that during the analysis, but that's very probable, I think. Like, Dricus just has the ability to just find, like, huge shots and kill you. That's something that he does, right? And yeah, man, main event is not going to be good. I'm kind of excited because I have like 2 fights that I care about in an analysis level, and that's the Bruna Brasil fight and the Zhang Weili fight, because if they win, I get to look good and brag. So I'm guessing I'm invested in those 2. other than that, the prelims are going to be a lot of fun, and then it's going downhill once the main card begins, and it's going to end up with a terrible fight on the main event. Hopefully not. Hopefully I'm wrong, and we have a decent fight on the main event, or at least it's like super stupid. Yeah, Strickland. One thing about Strickland is that is very underrated about Strickland, I feel, is that he has great eyes. Because like the way he's defending, he should be getting hit like super hard by everyone. And he's just not. And a little bit of that is the level of competition. But a little bit of that is also a skill by Strickland's part. Like, he has very good eyes. Like, he spars a lot and he has a lot of experience. And he's just good at seeing shots coming and predicting what's going to happen. So he can get away with like the terrible like mechanical reactions because they are like most of the time the right reaction. So he's like choosing something very janky to do, but he's choosing it at the right time. And I feel like Duplessis is that, but offensively. Like, Duplessis, everything he throws looks awful, but he throws a lot of stuff at the right moment, so that's why he's successful. But yeah. I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys for joining me. Always appreciate it. I know this pay-per-view is rough. I know the interest is not super high, but I still had fun, especially scouting for the prelims. There's a lot of cool fights I'm going to be watching. Fight Companion is probably going to be just main card because like even though the prelims are better, I don't think I have the energy in me to do like 6 hours of Fight Companion. Maybe one day I try it. But yeah, I mean, thank you everyone. Catch you guys on the next one. I'm Fenyo from the Fight Size signing out.